creative intuition isn't just, quote, winging it or making it up as you go along. Instead, creative intuition is not the absence of skill or knowledge. When we create from creative intuition, all of our reading, all of our practice, all of our lived experiences become the foundation for something fresh and alive to emerge. Welcome to The Whole Writer, a place where we talk about what it means to show up as a writer. Not just a better writer or a more productive writer or a published writer, but a whole one. Someone who's grounded in their voice, in their community, in their creative path, even when the world tells them to hustle, compare, or conform. I'm Nicole Meyer, a multi-published author and book coach who believes that nurturing the person behind the page is just as important as refining the words on it. Each week, we'll explore the terrain of writing life with honesty, warmth, and practical wisdom, creating space for you to write from a place of wholeness rather than depletion. Whether you're drafting your first manuscript or publishing your fifth book, you'll find conversation and companionship for the journey here. So, settle in, bring your questions and your curiosity, and let's discover what it means to write and live with authenticity and purpose. Hello, beautiful creatives, and welcome back to The Whole Writer. I'm so glad you're here with me today on this solo episode. All right, today we're exploring something I know so many of you wrestle with, that push and pull between all the resources, advice, and shoulds in the writing world, and that quiet, persistent voice inside you that knows things the books or courses don't teach. It's about finding your way between structure and surrender, between learning and trusting, between the external wisdom we gather and the internal wisdom we already carry. If you've ever been overwhelmed by all the craft books on your shelf or wondered if following your gut means you're being lazy or undisciplined, this episode is for you. And if you've ever felt like you're losing your authentic voice in the sea of writing advice, this is especially for you. Let's start by honoring what I call the sacred tension, because here's what I've learned. The relationship between resources and intuition isn't actually a battle. It's a dance. And like any good dance, both partners need to show up fully. Side note here, I danced in both high school and college, so I feel like I'm allowed to use this analogy, as cliche as it might seem. All right, the problem comes when we try to make one more important than the other. When we dismiss our intuition as just feelings, or when we ignore practical craft as limiting our creativity. Both approaches leave us incomplete as writers. I remember working with a writer who had read every craft book imaginable. She could quote the authors by heart. But when she sat down to write, she was paralyzed because her internal editor had become this chorus of expert voices, all arguing about what she should do next. She lost touch with her own creative compass entirely. On the flip side, I've also worked with writers who pride themselves on pure intuition, writing by the seat of their pants. But their work lacked the structural foundation to carry readers through a complete emotional journey. Their intuition was beautiful, but it needed practical craft to become a bridge others could cross. I often talk about this dilemma over on my Substack newsletter. So let's talk about what resources actually are, because I think we've gotten confused about this. Resources, whether they're craft books, online courses, writing communities, or mentorships, these aren't rules. They're not laws. They're tools and maps and stories from other people's creative journeys. Think of them as letters from other writers saying, here's what I discovered. Here's what worked for me. Here's what I learned the hard way. They're offerings, not commands. The most liberating realization you can have as a writer is this. You get to choose what serves your work and what doesn't. You get to take what feels alive and true to you and leave the rest without guilt. I have a writing craft book that I love like 80% of the time, but there's one chapter that makes my creative spirit feel cramped and anxious every time I read it. You know what I do? I skip that chapter every single time. And I don't feel guilty about it because I've learned to trust that my creative intuition knows what nourishes my work and what doesn't. Your intuition is actually remarkably intelligent about this. It knows when something feels expansive and when something feels constricting. It knows when advice lights you up with possibility and when it makes you want to close your laptop and walk away. So let's talk about creative intuition next, because this is where things really get interesting. Creative intuition isn't just, quote, winging it or making it up as you go along. This used to be me, and it took me a long time to figure out this approach wasn't serving my novel writing process. Instead, creative intuition is not the absence of skill or knowledge. It's actually a very sophisticated form of intelligence that draws on everything you've ever read, experienced, felt, dreamed, and wondered about. Pretty cool, huh? Your creative intuition is the part of you that recognizes patterns before your conscious mind does. It's what makes you write a scene that doesn't quite make logical sense but feels absolutely necessary. It's what tells you a character needs to do something unexpected, even though you can't explain why. When we create from creative intuition, all of our reading, all of our practice, all of our lived experiences become the foundation for something fresh and alive to emerge. I just love that. So how do we let resources and intuition dance together instead of fighting each other? Here are some gentle practices I've discovered. All right, number 1, the learning and letting go practice. When you read craft advice or take a workshop, spend time afterwards just sitting with your current project. Don't immediately try to apply what you learned. Instead, ask yourself, ask your work, what from this feels true for you? What wants to be integrated? Let your project tell you what it needs. Practice number 2, the internal compass check. Before you implement any advice, pause and feel into it. Does this suggestion make your project feel more alive or less alive? Does it open up possibilities or shut them down? Your body often knows before your mind does. Practice number 3, the selective bibliography approach. Instead of trying to follow all advice equally, choose 1 or 2 craft resources that consistently feel nourishing to your creative spirit. I'm going to say that again because it's important. Choose 1 or 2 craft resources that consistently feel nourishing to your creative spirit. Let those be your primary guides and treat everything else as interesting but optional. And number 4, the conversation practice. Think of craft resources as joining a conversation rather than receiving commandments. Read actively, questioning, agreeing, and disagreeing, letting yourself have opinions about what serves your work and what doesn't. All right, before I move on, I think that I will recap those practices for you. So number 1, the learning and letting go practice. Number 2, the internal compass check. Number 3, the selective bibliography approach. And number 4, the conversation practice. Okay, I want to talk about something called trusting your creative ecosystem. Here's something I would love for you to consider. You are already a complete creative being. You don't need to be fixed or completed by external resources. You need to be nourished by them. I cannot stress that enough. Your creative intuition has been developing your entire life. Every book you've loved, every conversation that moved you, every moment of beauty that stopped you in your tracks, all of this is part of your creative intelligence. You're not starting from scratch. You're not empty or inadequate. You are rich, you are complex, you are a creative being who gets to choose what additional nourishment will help your unique work flourish. I just love this quote from author Rilke. The only journey is the one within. That's because your writing journey is ultimately about discovering and trusting your own creative truth, not about becoming someone else's version of a writer. Writers, if what we're talking about today is resonating with you, this idea of honoring both your craft knowledge and your creative intuition, that's exactly the kind of work I do with writers inside my coaching and editing services. Whether you're looking for a big picture manuscript evaluation, in-depth developmental edits, or ongoing monthly coaching, My goal is always to help you find clarity, confidence, and momentum in a way that feels creative and authentic to your voice. You can learn more about these options at NicoleMeyer.com. So let me offer this practical but gentle guidance for your daily writing practice. Before you write, take a moment to sense into your project. What does it need today? What's trying to emerge? Let this guide whether you turn to craft resources or to trust your intuitive flow. Also think about creating resource boundaries. Maybe you read craft books only on certain days or only in between projects. Find a rhythm that serves your work. Also think about practicing resource gratitude without resource dependence. Here's what I mean by that. Appreciate the wisdom that others share, but remember that you are the authority on your own work. No one knows your story like you do. And remember to trust your creative seasons. This is something else I talk about over on Substack. Sometimes you'll be in a learning season, hungry for new perspectives and techniques. Sometimes you'll be in an integrating season, where you need to step back from input and let your intuition lead. Both seasons are necessary. Writers, here's what I want you to remember as I close. You don't have to choose between being studious and being intuitive. You don't have to choose between craft and authenticity. You get to be a whole writer, someone who learns and trusts, someone who gathers wisdom and listens within, someone who honors both the practical and the mysterious. Your creative work is not a problem to be solved with the right combination of resources. It's a living thing that wants to grow through the unique collaboration between your conscious learning and your unconscious knowing. Trust yourself. Trust your work. Trust the dance between what you learn and what you already know. And remember, the most important resource you have is your own creative spirit, which has been guiding you toward this moment, this work, this conversation with the world all along. Thank you for being here with me today, for doing this brave work of writing, and for trusting yourself enough to listen to both your teachers and your heart. I'll see you next time on The Whole Writer. If you're craving support in integrating everything we've talked about today, if you want to strengthen your craft without losing the heart of your story, I'd love to walk alongside you. Through manuscript evaluations, developmental edits, and monthly book coaching, I help writers like you to create stories that feel whole and alive. You can find all the details at NicoleMeyer.com or at the link in the show notes. And of course, if you just want to keep learning together, stay tuned for more episodes like this one. If you want to check out my coaching programs for fiction writers, visit NicoleMeyer.com. That's MEIER. And if you like this episode, I'd love you to take a minute to leave a rating and review for this podcast. This will help more writers like you to discover the show and to get going on their writing journey. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, happy writing, everyone.